Good evening, everyone, and we are back in Micah Chapter 1. And we had covered an introduction yesterday, and I hope that we would bear that in mind. But one of the things that I think we ought to do is we are now reading Chapter 1 from hindsight, meaning we have seen the things that have gone through the three kings of Judah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. And we also talked about the two northern kingdom kings, right? Hoshea and Pekah. And these are things that's going to happen there. And we also read about the in the fourth year of Hezekiah's reign, that the Assyrians came. And so we actually covered a lot of material, and that would be at the back of our mind. Now, when we are looking at the rest of the chapter in chapter 1, just bear in mind that we are actually having hindsight. And so put that on the back burner, put it aside for the time being, so that we now approach chapter 1 as how Samaria and Jerusalem would be listening to Micah talk to them of what God wants to say. Yesterday, when we were concluding, I also had asked us to be careful when we were talking about the who's being addressed. Is it just the northern kingdom? Is it just the southern kingdom? Or is it both the north and south together? And so let us cover verse 2 onwards. There are 3 sections in this chapter, and let's look at it a little bit more closer. In chapter 1, looking at verse 2, this is what's happening. It says, "Here," and here is the word that I've tried to explain to you all this while, where we've covered Habakkuk, in the book of Amos, in the book of Haggai. The word here, Shema, right? Shema. It is not only to hear the sounds, but very much to understand what you have heard, and then to do something with it, to make a decision, to take an action. Very similar to when, as parents, when you tell your children, listen to me, I'm telling you this, can you clean up your room or make up your bed? And the intent is not for your children to hear your voice, but the intent is to have them get up to take action on what you have said. And that would be very much how God, when he says here, would be to the audience to listen to what he has said and to understand and appreciate it, and then make decisions and corresponding actions as it comes along. And it says, all you peoples. This is one of those rare occasions, and the word people here is not goyim. Goyim, by the way, is being used for peoples of the world, particularly non-Israelites. In this case, this word here is Am. Am is another word for people. But this would be with reference to all the people of Israel. And that would be the attention that God is bringing. And as Micah is opening his mouth, he is calling upon both north and south, right? Both north and south to listen to what is being said. Now, the second word here is listen. The word listen here is not is not to hear like Shema. It is another word, really meaning to pay attention. Okay, let me just put this down. Pay attention. Pay attention. Incline your ears. Prick up your ears. You know, that kind of understanding. So it is not here. It is pay attention. That would be a good way of expressing it. O earth, and by earth, this would mean land. And this is a way of speaking that all the peoples of the land, right? Of the land. And this would be the promised land. And all that is in it is speaking to peoples, right? The next line here is, let the Lord God be a witness against you. Now, this is important because the idea here of a witness is an eyewitness, which tells us very interestingly the Lord God, and in this case, the word Lord here would be Adonai, right? Adonai. The Lord God, the Lord God here would be Adonai Yehovah, right? Adonai Yehovah. So let me just put it down. If you are careful reading your English Bibles, and if you have the New King James or maybe the ESV or particularly the NASB, and just observe this line here. Okay, observe this line. This is in small letters. This is in caps. And the reason why it's done this way, the NIV may have a slightly different translation. The first word is literally Lord, and that would be Adonai. The second word is not God. The second word is Yehovah. So it is Adonai Yehovah. Now, in the Jewish tradition, they don't pronounce the name of God, the Yod He Vav He, and so they would replace it with a more affectionate word, Adonai. But the first word here is already Adonai, and so in the translation, it would sound very silly to be small letter Lord, and then big letter Lord. And then the English reader would be stuck. It's like, who is this Lord? And because of that, they have decided to change the convention only for this type of instances. That Adonai, Yod He Vav He, the name of God, coming together would be translated as Lord, God, and the word God would be in all caps. You see, all capital letters. I think in the NIV, you may have a different word like sovereign God or something like that. And some other translations may have something else. I just want to point out to you that to be careful, because if you see the word sovereign God or sovereign Lord, the word sovereign does not exist. So it gives you an idea of something which is not exactly there because of that word sovereign. So in a more literal translation, it would be Adonai Yehovah. He is the one who has seen all these things against you, right? He has seen. And this is about the Lord Adonai from his holy temple. Now, one of the things that we had left off in Haggai is about the rebuilding of the temple. Now, the other thing that I think we should understand as well, the word temple here, there is no specific word for temple. The word for temple here is hekal. Now, the word hekal can mean a number of things. The dominant image would be, how should we say? It would be a building, a construction that Elohim would occupy. If you look at it this way, and a hekal would be a construction such that Elohim is residing. And by that, you can understand that Elohim in the Hebrew does not necessarily mean God. It means the mighty one. The mighty one. And so if this mighty one refers to the creator God, and that would mean that this would be a temple. That would be one view or one understanding of this word, temple. Okay? But if this mighty one is a king, then this structure would be a palace. Now, if you see God as in a temple or in a palace or in a sanctuary or in an enclosure, that gives him the grandeur. I think that would be a better word to use, a grandeur. This structure would have that meaning. And so don't be fixated over the word temple, because that same word could mean a palace, could mean a sanctuary. And so by that, we could say that the Lord God is speaking from his holy palace or holy temple. So a temple, in all essence of it, provides us with the idea of the presence of God, and he is on his throne. And so in the temple, there would be the Ark of the Covenant. And on top of the Ark of the Covenant is what we call the mercy seat. And the mercy seat is the representation of the throne of God. And so with that in mind, the temple, for all intents and purposes, is not merely a place to worship God, but it is also a representation of the grandeur of God with him on the throne. And that would be how the picture is given to us as we begin to read verse 2. Now in verse 3, behold, the Lord Jehovah is coming out of his palace. So out of his place where he is. That would be a way of looking at it. So it's a very imagery message that's coming out. I don't think you need to think of God getting out of the door or things like that. It is just to conjure in our mind that, look, God is leaving his palace and he is coming down and he will tread on the high places of the earth. It's to give an imagery that God himself is acting. Okay? And with that, the Jews will look at this in awe and in shock. It's like, wow, if God were to do it himself, this must be something serious. So that would be the imagery. Now, remember this morning we had talked about the high places. And in this particular case, this is not about sacrifice areas and things like that. This would be the mountains. This is a very poetic way of saying God is coming. Right? God is coming. And if that's the case, the mountains will melt under him. Gives you a picture of Mount Hermon when they have lots of snow now, and come March, April, it will start melting. And that would be the picture of melting, because God is coming and stepping on it. The valleys will split. And this kind of imagery gives you a picture of what is preceding God coming. And these are all the incredible image that's set in the mind that God is this mighty God that comes through with fire and with water gushing down, right? And that is the picture. in verse 4. And that picture is to give us a sense of awe. I know when you read the English, it doesn't sound a whole lot, but you talk about God going out of his place, coming down, treading on high places. You notice these are all verbs. The mountains will melt, the valleys will split, the wax will have fire, the water will gush down on the steep place. All of these is to give this imagery that, wow, God is coming. And all these incredible things is running in the mind. And that's very poetic in verse 3 and 4. Now, what is more important for us to notice will be verse 5. With the imagery of God stepping out and coming down, it will give you a sense that something incredible is going to happen. And this is not, how should I say, this is not something that the Jews are looking for, right? Israel is not looking for this. Perhaps we could actually reflect a little bit on this. When little children does something bad, broke the father's favorite cup, for example, that was sitting in the library. The little children knows that they have done something wrong, but isn't that much scared until they hear the father slamming the door from upstairs with heavy steps walking down the stairs, giving that kind of imagery that strikes fear into the very heart of the children. And that is what verse 3 and 4 is all about. That the Father is coming down. God is stepping down onto the land. He is paying us a visit. And as you have seen in Amos, paying a visit is not a nice thing. He's coming to deal with something really serious. And so verse 5 says, all this is for the transgression of Jacob. Transgression, again, Pesha. And if you are not familiar, please refer to the book of Amos again. Pesha is with reference to rebellion. Okay? Rebellion. Things that is intentional. Things that is idolatry. Right? Idolatry. Things that is Hamas. Violence. Right? And then it says, and for the sins of the house of Israel. Now notice, this is A and B. And this is both two lines saying the same things. Okay? So the transgressions and the sins match. Jacob and the house of Israel also match. All this is to deal with the northern kingdom. Everything that they have done, sins as well as transgressions, offenses against God, that God is going to hold them responsible. Okay? Now, the next two lines also goes like this. What is the transgression of Jacob? Is it not Samaria? What are the high places of Judah? Are they not Jerusalem? Now, this is a bit tricky, so I'll just tell you my take of this. These are also A and B. We're talking about Jacob and then talking about Judah. The A and B would be the north and Judah would be the south. But both with regards to the same problem. What problem? And this is my view. The problem is about transgression. Transgression that is in Samaria, right? Or Shomron. Yesterday I've told this to you. Shomron. And this would be the name for Samaria. What are the high places And high places have both positive and neutral as well as negative. I would assume this to be the negative, right? Because we're talking about transgressions of Jacob, high places of Judah, not in particular the temple, but this would be with reference to their idolatry. Are they not in Jerusalem? And so I am positing that this is really an A and B with regards to idolatry. Both the north and the south. And that is why God is coming down out of his place to deal with this. And Micah is in the time where the northern kingdom will be taken over. Okay? And so that would be the line I would draw. Next, 6 and 7. Therefore, because of their sins of idolatry, because of their pesha, I, God, will make Shomron a heap of ruins in the field, places for planting a vineyard. Field would be an open field, and likely where they plant grapes, right? And it will be in ruins. These words are correct. God says, Samaria, not just the place, this is the northern kingdom. The entire place would be in ruin. That it is no longer going to be what it is today. And when the Assyrians come through, that's what they do, right? That's what they do. Next, I will pour down her stones into the valley and I will uncover her foundations. Again, this is another A and B, and it's to depict utter destruction. So all these are very picturesque, right? It's images that is running through our heads with regards to the northern kingdom. That God says, that's the one I'm addressing. Although both north and south have done equally bad, but with the north, God is treating them first or engaging with them first. All her carved images shall be beaten to pieces. Now, this one, I think we need to break it down a little bit. Carved images. When we talk about idols, I don't know what we have in our mind, but really these are what we would call graven or carved, right? That you take a stone that you carve out a shape or a form, right? This is chiseling a stone to a form of stone. And they do that for idols. So whenever the word is used, pasil, it refers to these idols, right? And then it is going to be beaten to pieces. Now, this is an interesting thing. The English does express this quite well. The idea here is to take the stone images and crush it. And it literally goes into pieces. I guess if the picture would be to take that, crush it, it breaks into tiny pieces. That's the image. The next one is all her pay as a harlot. I'm not sure whether you call it a pay. This would be a gift. I'm also not sure whether that would be a nice word to use. This would be the monies, short of a better word. The monies that people pay her as a harlot, right? to be hired. And whatever she has received, and by she would be Samaria, it shall be burned with fire. All her idols, in verse 7, in this case, it is a different word, atsaf. And atsaf, how should I say? Atsaf means yeah, I think an image, and I'm not sure what else we can say about atsaf. This is an image that grieves. It grieves God. Okay? All these idols or little images, I will lay desolate. And the word desolate here, in verse 7, literally means also in devastation, in waste. And another synonym for ruins. For she gathered it from the pay of a harlot, and they shall return to the pay of a harlot. What's this all about? One of the things that comes to mind is that God has faulted the northern kingdom for playing the harlot with Assyria. And God is using Assyria to destroy the northern kingdom. And by this would be how the Israel is related to Assyria in two ways. The first way is Israel is playing the harlot with Assyria, and Assyria pays Israel. And that would be the early days. And then later, Assyria would destroy Israel. And this would be the pay return to Assyria, because Assyria comes and takes over the place. So this is the imagery of this section. Now up to verse 7, God is speaking. Starting from verse 8, what you would see is the reaction of Micah, right? It's not God, it's Micah. And from verse 8 onwards, it's also very poetic. I guess in our culture, if we say, I'm very sad, doesn't seem to have an impact. And so the Hebrew people will tell a story, will tell a graphic image in such vivid poetry to say, I am sad. So that is what is happening from verse 8 onwards. The first word here is lament, right? This is lament. To cry, to mourn. And the second word is to howl, right? To wail. Yeah, howl is a good word. The other word is a wail. Basically, two words very similar to each other, and this would be the emphasis. Therefore, I will cry out, I will wail, I will mourn. And then it says, I will go stripped and naked. And how should I say this? No, I will go stripped and naked. The word naked is nude, right? Being nude. And the first word here would be naked. I think another word for naked can be naked, can be nude, or can be barefoot. But I think nude would go well, because then you would have two words of the same. And so basically you will find this is an A and a B, saying the same thing twice, that he is out of his mind. Basically, verse 8 is talking about out of mind. And this is Micah in response to what God is about to do. He cannot believe himself. And so he says, I will make wailing like the jackals or mourning like the ostrich, for her wounds are incurable. And why is it this way in verse 9? In verse 9, it says, incurable as of sick, right? This would be very sick, okay? Very sick, to the point of incurable, that God is going to do something that I suppose it is not reversible. And with all this poetry, her wounds are incurable, comes some very, very direct words. For it has come to Judah. It has come to the gate of my people, to Jerusalem. And with this is Judah, southern, also called my people, come to Judah. By the way, gate would be the gate of Jerusalem. And gates are very important. Gates are the entry, exit, the place of judgment, the place of refuge, the place of discussion, the place of community. And at the same time, when the gate is broken, then the city is taken. So gates are very, very important for both positive and negative. And this one here, I think we ought to be, how should I say? I think we ought to be very clear that in this particular verse, I would bring our attention to 2 Kings. Chapter 18, verses 13 to 14, which we have seen yesterday, so no need to look at it again. And all I wanted to point out to you is that when these words are spoken in verse 9, they are seeing a prophecy that sometime down the road, that it is quite inevitable that the enemies will come to the gate of Judah, to Jerusalem. Not just Samaria, but also to Jerusalem. And we read in 2 Kings chapter 18, verses 13 to 14, is that when the Assyrians came to take the northern state, the northern kingdom, in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, then that's by Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, they also took all the fortified cities of Judah, but they couldn't enter into Jerusalem. Now that in itself, later on, they came and they wanted to conquer Jerusalem, and God would not allow. But that is as far as it comes. But in the mind of Micah, that is something atrocious, something so extraordinary, something so lamentable, that it has come to this point that God is going to execute judgment on his people. Now, I'm not sure whether I'm able to communicate to you the emotions around Micah. He is literally responding in shock, in horror, in mourning. He couldn't believe his ears that he has heard from God, that all these things are going to happen, and it's going to happen not just to Samaria, the northern kingdom, is also going to come to the gate of Jerusalem. Now that in itself is the reaction of Micah. Now, just one more point before we go on. This chapter here, 2 Kings 18, 13, and 14, speaks of the fact that the Assyrians would come and take all the fortified cities of Judah. Now, by Judah, it doesn't necessarily need to belong to Judah themselves. It would be the people who occupy those places. And so that would be Jerusalem, the east of it, the west of it, the south of it, and all of these are many fortified cities. And so in the next segment here, verse 10 onwards, it's about Gath, about Beth Afra, and all these are an expressions of saying, don't tell them. Why? Don't tell Gath. Don't weep at all, right? The reason is Gath is a cause of your failure. Now all these things, the rest of the words you find there, they are all in Philistia, the land of the Philistines, south of Jerusalem, all the way down, and then east of Jerusalem. These are all the lands, but it's not Jerusalem itself. It's all the cities around it. In very poetic language, roll yourself in the dust, which is a sign of repentance. Pass by in naked shame. Remember, he says, I'm going to run naked. You inhabitant of Shaphir, Zaanan, Beth Etzel. All of these are cities in Philistia, south and east of Jerusalem. Inhabitants of Maroth. And then let's get to Lachish shortly. And so when it comes to Lachish, one of the things you find in 2 Kings chapter 18 is that Hezekiah sat down and have a discussion. I won't say sat down, I mean, matter of speaking, had to discuss with the Assyrians when they are conquering Lachish. And Lachish is a Philistine city. And Lachish is not that far away from Jerusalem. And so Hezekiah decided to have a truce with Sennacherib. And with that truce, Hezekiah agreed to pay tribute. And so with regards to Lachish, all these have not happened yet. Harness your chariot to the swift steeds. This will be the bunch of horses that will pull the chariot. Why harness? Because the Assyrians are coming. These are the beginnings of the sin of the daughter of Zion. The transgressions of Israel were found in you. This would be the south and the north. But in actual fact, it's with regards to Lachish, and Lachish will fall. Will fall. Therefore, you shall give presents. Now, verse 14, it is not about presents as like birthday gifts. This would be, how should we say, a parting gift. Parting gift to Moresheth Gath. This is also where Micah comes from, and this also in Philistia. And without me saying any more, Moresheth Gath also will fall to the Assyrians. So the expression of give them a parting gift means to say goodbye to them. The houses of Achziph shall be allied to the kings of Israel. As much as you think they are safe, they will be destroyed too. Yet I will bring an heir to you. For lack of a better word, I think the heir would not be a nice word to use. This would be better to use a possessor. Possessor. Or a dispossessor. Who would this be? That would be the Assyrians. They will come and displace you. I will bring an heir to you, O inhabitants of Mareshah. The glory of Israel shall come to Adullam. That would mean that the glory of Israel is not about the glory as in brilliance. The glory here in verse 15. As much as we say glory is actually weight, in the positive side would be the glory, the splendor of Israel. But I think when you take the word glory and see it from a negative side, that would be a burden, right? It would look like a burden, in a weight, right? Or in a negative sense. The loss of dignity shall come to Adullam. So all of these, as you can see, all here is a foretelling, a prophecy of all these cities where Joshua in Joshua 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 had gone in and conquered. But they will also be taken by the Assyrians. All right? So we come to the last verse. The last verse is verse 16. And it's a strange verse, but so let me break it down. It says, make yourself bald. By bald, it means to shave the hair, right? Shave hair bald. That would be the word, make yourself bald. It is, and the reason why I try to explain this to you is because the words in the English prefers to use nouns. The words in Hebrew prefers to use verbs. The reason being is that when you hear these words spoken, it is supposed to conjure imagery in your mind. And those imagery is in motion. So that you're not looking at a bald head. You are looking at the action of shaving bald. That is make yourself bald, right? That's the picture that it's conjured in the mind. And then the second one is cut off your hair. And the word cut is to shear. Now, shear in the old days is not shearing sheep's wool in Australia. They literally will cut it clean, literally make the sheep botak using the knife, right? And what you would see is this verse here. Oops. 1 and 2 would be your A and B. And so these are two statements talking about the same thing. Now, shaving the head is a sign of mourning. It may not be a sign of mourning to us today, but in ancient times, most cultures, as far as I can tell, mourning has to deal with the removal of the glory on the head. So it would be either in a form of cutting long hair into short or shaving bald. It is a sign of mourning. Now that is what verse 16 is all about. Because of your precious children, the children that you love. Why? What is this all about? Because they will be involved and affected by the punishment of God, the judgment of God that's going to come upon them, first the northern kingdom and then the southern kingdom. Enlarge your baldness like an eagle. I think it's not so much as shave the eagle. I don't think they have bald eagles there. This would be more vulture-like. if you look at vultures, vultures' heads are bald, right? And vulture would have some hair or some feathers at the back of its head. And so it says, enlarge your baldness. So although the front of the vulture's head is bald with some feathers at the back, the idea here is pluck it off too. Make the baldness extend itself. And that is to say, mourn some more. Mourn some more. Why? For your precious children, for they, always needs to link this together, for they shall go from you into captivity. And this would mean exile, taken away. And hence, this ends a very sad chapter 1. I'm afraid I'm not able to explain and impress on you the severity of how Micah would have felt by the words he said, how he fell into lament with all these graphic words that he has described. But I hope that when you read it again, you can get the sense of disappointment, the sense of sadness in Micah's heart, that he is seeing the end of what the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom will be. And hence, Micah chapter 1 gives us some very sad news with regards to the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And with this, we end chapter 1.